Welcome into Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho.
And this is Jacob Waters.
And this is another episode of the Power Rankings Show. Thank you so much for watching. And I think we got a good one here today. We're not going to bury the lead. Let's get right into it. We'll put our Power Rankings on the board right now, looking at all the changes here. And that's what this episode is going to be. We're going to focus on some of the biggest changes. And then I think we have a couple of good little arguments. So, before the show, we were talking about what we wanted to talk about with this episode, and we kind of got into it with a certain thing, and I want to start there because I said that I think that it has kind of shifted a little bit. We were talking about early on in the season that there was a top 8 and a bottom 8, and I feel like that there's really just a top 6 now, and I look at our top 6 as a solidified group, and you disagreed with me, and I think that's where I want to start here today.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it's kind of splitting hairs just because of how close it is, but I do still consider the Ravens in there at 7 as a true contender. And yes, they got demolished by the Bengals. That was one of those games where I would say it impressed me the most by the Bengals was because the Ravens really didn't play a bad game. They showed up and played the version of football that they wanted to. Sure, the game script didn't really go their way, and there were times where they had some bounces, fall in the wrong spot, if you will. But overall, that wasn't a performance where after they got demolished, it was like, well, they lost because the defense let them down, or they lost because Lamar wasn't Lamar. All of those things weren't the case. The Bengals just showed up and showed out. I still have the Ravens up there, though. The Bengals kind of took a fall here. Losing to the Jets this past week, Mike White came up and showed out, and listen, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was him outperforming what the Bengals thought he couldn't do, or the Bengals kind of maybe were just on a lull.
I think fell asleep at the wheel a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Fell asleep at the wheel. And it feels like the Jets are the team to capitalize on some teams falling asleep at the wheel. They got past the Titans on that same exact reason. And, the Jets are not going to amount to anything this year overall. But when it comes to building a locker room and having big key wins, they got a few under their belt. And that's good to see. I want to give a shout out to the Patriots, though. The Patriots have been constantly climbing up the leaderboards here. And I'm telling you, they're a team you don't want to face Belichick in the playoffs. You just don't want that preparation against you. His ability to, I guess, null out a superstar quarterback and kind of keep it on level playing grounds is bar none in the league. He can do that against anyone, and he did it this past week against Herbert and the Chargers and gave Herbert his props and said he's going to be in the league for a long time and do a lot of good things. And Herbert still had a solid game, but able to just null him out, make him uncomfortable, take away what he does great, and then make you beat him in the areas that he's not. And not a lot of quarterbacks out there can do that. When you can, that's how you beat Bill. But this week he wasn't able to, and the Patriots are a good enough team. They play complementary football. Nothing really pops off. I was really hoping to see them make a move for a wide receiver, Odell perhaps at the trade deadline. They didn't, but the Patriots are a good team. They can make some noise.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our biggest risers this week was the New England Patriots because they have consistently shown, I feel like, consistently throughout their power rankings throughout the season, been somewhere in the middle ground, anywhere from 10 to 20. They've been in that range. They cracked the top 10 for the first time this year, and I think well-deserving after a strong win against the Chargers. Chargers stayed the same, ended up staying at 10, and that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles a little bit with some teams falling. Injuries happen. I think there was a lot of things that went into the fact that they didn't really fall, even though they did have a tough loss against the Patriots. We mentioned the Bengals losing against the Jets, a bottom team in the NFL, still staying in the top 10 after that loss. Can you give me some insight as to why you thought that they still belonged in the top 10 after that loss?
Yeah, I mean, I still think that they're a damn good team. And looking back at what they did against the Ravens, that was a really impressive win. And we aren't going to just punish a team altogether for having one lackluster performance, a very close loss at that, too, to the Jets. For that, the Bengals had a good offense. That's what showed up. They showed up and had a very good offensive game. Their defense needs to step up, and that's one of the pieces that I'm wondering if they can fix going the way to see if they can be a true contender. But overall, there was a lot of teams where I guess they still had a loss. Or let's look at the Cowboys, perhaps. The Cowboys went down a spot. They went down a spot after having a backup quarterback and an impressive Sunday Night Football win. But it's one of those things where we look at our list, and I think we need to clarify for the audience again. We usually, we do it, we hit on every now and then. We don't base this solely off of who won and lost. We base this off of who we truly think so-and-so is better than so-and-so. And I feel like the Bucs looking at 5 to Cowboys 6. The Cowboys won, the Bucs lost, but I think the Buccaneers are a better football team, top to bottom, than the Cowboys. And they played week 1, and the Buccaneers showed up and did what they were supposed to do. It's tough, because I guess most power rankings would say so-and-so lost. This is recency bias. Buccaneers lost, Cowboys won. They should flip-flop. Our rankings don't necessarily indicate that as much as they indicate how we feel a team can do. We take a lot of factors into it. Let's look at the Titans, perhaps. Titans dropping down 5 spots. They won against the Colts 34-31. But what happened? They lost Derrick Henry. And honestly, we're doing them a favor by not dropping them more because there's no player out there, especially when you look at non-quarterback wise, who matters as much to his team as he does. I'm curious to see what the Titans do. I'm curious to see if you think that the Titans can manage this.
Yeah, I think obviously they were a top 10 team, falling out of that down to 13 overall. I think this fall could have been farther. I think, this fall could continue. I'm curious. Listen, I really like Ryan Tannehill. I do think he is a really good quarterback. I understand, listen, there's a lot of hate. There's hate from Titans fans, which I really don't get because I feel like
Tannehill, a lot of hate. He's done nothing but good for them.
Tannehill has been the best quarterback they've had in a long time, and I really don't understand the hate that they get from Titans fans specifically, but just across the NFL. He had lackluster performance in Miami. Obviously, this is not a guy who is going to be a top 5 quarterback and win despite the roster every single year. That's not who Tannehill is, but he is a solid quarterback, can complete every throw, can plays the game very well, definitely needs help around him. Derrick Henry was a huge part of that and a huge reason why Tannehill was able to flourish the way he has over the past couple of years. I mean, I do think he's been deserving of the contract he's gotten. He has led the Titans to some good wins here and there. It'll be interesting to see that a lot goes on his shoulders, and he is definitely going to be opened up to some criticism if the Titans fall off and really, really struggle. I know we talked about in our podcast that I still think this is a team that gets to that wins their division. I still think this is a team that they can survive the rest of the season without Derrick Henry, still win enough games to get ahead of the Colts, having already swept the Colts. So all they have to do is tie the Colts at the end of the year and win their division. That's all they have to do, right? So, and the last 2 games are the Dolphins and the Texans.
What's the Colts record right now? Is it 3-5?
Colts are 3-5. They're 5-3.
And
so
at 3-5, the Titans are 6-2.
The Titans are 6-2.
So at 6-2. Yes, I understand the handicap that is losing Derrick Henry. You have a damn good head start, though. Yeah. All you got to do,
Texans
like I said, is pretty much
Jags
go a 1 for 3 on the way out. Not that that's going to amount to anything truly in the AFC to scare people, but when it comes to your division, you just so happen to be in one of the worst divisions in football. Take advantage of that. Titans, all you got to do, you play the Texans twice, you play the Jaguars once. You win those games right there. That's 9 wins.
Yeah.
I think 9 wins can command this division.
Yeah, because are the Colts going to win? Said they have to win 7.
That means they have to go 7.
Whatever it is.
Games they have to go
they have to win 7 of the last 9. Yeah, so that's a lot. That's probably not going to happen.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah, so that's
not to mention the Titans having the tiebreaker over them too.
That's a really good way to look at it. It does feel like, you go on, if you look at I wonder what the odds are with the Titans to win their division right now after this game. Obviously, the odds should still be in their favor, but with losing Derrick Henry, maybe it's not. I would still bet on it because all they have to do is tie the Colts.
Unless it just blows up in their face. I would like to think that Vrabel and this team as a whole can do enough of shifting this offense around. And listen, Tannehill is formidable. He's a good quarterback. Yeah, and we're about to see a lot of Titans fans out there. I don't know why he gets the criticism that he does. I don't know if it's because Mariota didn't really plan out in your favor like you thought it would, or it just the whole shift of leadership in that locker room and team from when that happened. I don't know why y'all aren't rooting for this guy, though. And see, don't get me wrong, not everyone is it. Not everyone's against him. But definitely a lot more people than what you would think. And Tannehill has done nothing but good for this team, I would say, overall. And we're really about to see what happens with A.J. Brown and Julio. They're going to have to step up in a big way and fill a role, and they're going to have to do it through the passing game.
We'll see what happens there. It'll be interesting to see how far this team drops. If 13, or if this range ends up being their home, they could go the other way. Maybe, listen, if they start to put up some really good performances offensively without Derrick Henry, they will fly up the rankings, in my opinion. They really will. They will prove a lot if they can do it without Derrick.
They're not solely a one-dimensional thing, and Tannehill can go to that occasion, man.
Let's move it over to a couple other AFC teams that have fallen down. Chiefs, I think both of us kind of, we talk about, hey, we don't look at record, we don't look at wins, losses every single week. Chiefs have constantly, over the past, I'd say 4 or 5 weeks now, shown that they are not as good of a team as the legacy that they have put up over the past 2 years with Mahomes behind the wheel. They have not been that same team this year. and we have consistently given them respect. We talked about last week, them sitting at 12 overall last week and saying, hey, what are we stupid? Are we going to look stupid, at the end of the year for keeping them here midway through the season? And I think this drop, only 4 spots after a win against the Giants, this drop I think is indicative of us saying, yeah, we're no longer looking at what they were 2 years ago, last year, whatever it is, and we're seeing a team that is struggling against a team that we both agree is a bottom feeder in the NFL right now, and we're going to continue to look at this team a little bit more harshly than maybe we have in the past. And honestly, 16 might not be enough. They could easily be in the 20s next week. I mean, the way this team has been looking, they're not getting any more favors from me, and I know you feel similarly.
No, I mean, they could and they should be, because if there was a get right week, if there was a week where you're supposed to do it on Monday Night Football, the Chiefs taking over the Giants, that is supposed to be just written in the stars for Pat Mahomes to just get it right. The Giants have one of the worst defenses in the league overall, and with all these heavy hitters that you have, Travis Kelce was forgotten. Yeah. Tyreek Hill they just were not able to get going, and it was sad to see the Giants ranked 28th on our list, and the Chiefs won, what was it, 20-17 or 17-14?
Yeah, they won a field goal at the end, whatever it was.
It was sad to see that the Chiefs, we had been giving them so much respect, and they still are a team that I would not want to face. You don't want to go up against this team because they're due any given week to have those big hits. But right now, Patrick Mahomes is not playing like a top 10 quarterback, and Mahomes is good enough to propel this team and all their inefficiencies in the other direction, but right now he is not rising to that occasion, and our rankings have to indicate that. Another team in the AFC that I think we need to talk about when it comes to, I guess, trying to get our rankings right and seeing how much firepower and talent that they have, but it's really not adding up to wins and losses. Well, it's adding up, but it's kind of equaled out at 4-4, is the Cleveland Browns. They are showing up time and time again, just really not putting it all together. They're banged up, so we can give them that little bit of a caveat right now, but it's starting to get to the crunch time in the season. It's starting to get when you're playing these really tough interdivision rivals in the Pittsburgh Steelers this past week. Those matter. Those go into this wild card seeding. Those go into trying to take care of a division where right now the Cincinnati Bengals are still tied with the Baltimore Ravens at top, and the Browns are the bottom dwellers here. Unfortunately, it's a very competitive division. I want to see Baker get right. I want to see him get healthy. You lost Nick Chubb. You lost Kareem Hunt. You have Jedrick Wills, who's banged up on your offensive line. He was a slam dunk rookie left tackle. Jack Conklin on the other side. Losing both tackles is hard to do. It's just tough to see. I don't know what Stefanski's going to do, but this roster is too good to miss the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely.
Too good. Do you think they ride it? Are they on their way down? I would say the Chiefs are still trending down, but Chiefs and Browns outside in are not in the playoffs right now. Both teams we thought would be a shoo-in. Does one make it? Do both make it?
Yeah, I do think both make it at the end of the day. I think the Browns are in a situation where, yeah, they're banged up right now. Yeah, they're falling down our power rankings because we do try and look at it from a week-to-week basis, and it does move. But they're going to get healthy. I think there's an opportunity here for the Browns to get healthy at the right time. And if you're coming into week 10, 11, 12, and you start to put it all together, there's a real chance that they could take momentum from the end of the season right into the playoffs and just, they did last year a little bit, honestly. Going down to the last couple plays in the game against the Chiefs, they could be in that same situation this year.
Peaking at the right time is a big thing.
It is a big thing. So obviously it happens every year with injuries. Yeah, obviously that's a big thing. And do they get healthy? Maybe they don't, and maybe this is kind of a lost season for them. I'm certainly not ready to say that yet. I really do believe they're going to get healthy. They'll get back to it, and they'll be fine. Let's switch over to the NFC with another huge injury in the Saints, moving up in our rankings, which is I think a little bit of a surprise. But again, we do, like you said earlier, we try to take away everything that we've seen, every ranking that we had last year. We try and just take that off the table and re-rank the teams from bottom to top every single week, and that's how it landed this week. Even though the James Winston injury is going to be a big deal, I think we both have a lot of faith in the coaching staff. We have a lot of faith in Taysom Hill coming back from a concussion injury, whatever it's going to be. That obviously a huge hit, and they might fall down, but you can't beat the Bucs, a perennial top 5 team on our power rankings every single week, and not go up. I think that's at the end of the day where we were. Where do you stand with the Saints?
I would say one of the biggest things is the respect that I have for Sean Payton.
Yeah.
And the, I guess, impact that I do not put on the quarterback being the sole driving force behind the success to this team. Yes, are the Jameis Winston-led Saints better than what would be the Trevor Siemian or the Taysom Hill coming back or the Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement? Whatever version of this you want to paint, the Jameis Winston-led Saints are a better version of that. But we saw it last year when Drew Brees went down. We've seen it in years past that Sean Payton has a talent. I almost think he doesn't like the injury, of course, but he likes being able to tout his resume and say, regardless of who's there under center, we're going to have a different way to win, but we're going to win. Yeah. And the Saints found a way to do it. Listen, I lost some money on it because as soon as Jameis went down, I said, oh, Bucks minus 7.5. Bet your ass they're not going to be able to move the ball against this Buccaneers defense. Game script doesn't really line up like that sometimes. Sean Payton knows what he's doing. He can handle swapping guys in and out, moving this team around. They have full trust in him, and that's the biggest thing that the Saints are doing with moving up. Yes, I guess the outlook for them could be bleak, but in years past, was it bleak? It was, but what did they do? They haven't lost a game.
Yeah.
They haven't lost a game while missing out on that quarterback right now. We have yet to see that happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust Sean Payton enough to know that it'll probably be okay.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. An absolutely great way to put it. Last thing I want to talk about before we start to look forward, as we do at the end of every single one of these episodes, beginning of our power rankings, 1 through 5 got mixed up a little bit. And like I said at the beginning, I do look at a drop off after 6, and I think that top 6 has pretty much stayed intact for the most part.
They change.
They change, but yeah, absolutely. Rams moving back up to the first spot. Is that a Von Miller move for us? Is that obviously we both made this list, but where do you think the most respect belongs with the Rams right now? Obviously, powering through some not great teams. They've gotten a fairly easy part of their schedule.
They had to take care of the Giants and they had to take care of the Texans this past week. So that's nothing to really pat your back on.
Yeah, that's the last 3 games.
So, exactly, and they did what they should have done though.
Yeah,
it's the Rams. They're peaking. They're getting good. They're getting more acclimated with Matt Stafford under center. And now with the acquisition of Von Miller. Yeah, Von Miller's aging. Von Miller's old. But if there's a guy who can really give a veteran prowess off on this line with Aaron Donald, who are you going to block? How are you going to do this?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. I think the Rams secondary is really good too, to the point where they already have a lot of coverage sacks. I don't think coverage sacks get talked about enough in the league from where that's where your secondary is playing up to the beyond par, to where your defensive line doesn't even have to really do that much. You can rush forward and get some good pressure in there. The Rams are built tough. They are a good team. They get to take on the new-faced Titans this week, and I think it's another game where, the Rams might have gotten a little lucky, I guess, because you don't have to face Derrick Henry this go-around. But I think that the Rams are a better football team than the Cardinals. It's hard to say that because I feel like a lot of people go against it because the Cardinals just fell off their little mountain of being undefeated, being the number 1 team. And the Cardinals beat the Rams pretty heavily, but they get to play later on. I like the Rams. I like Sean McVay and what he's able to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's by far the Bills and Rams are close. After that, you get to another little drop-off for me.
Packers, obviously, winning a big game against that Cardinals. Had to give the respect and put the Packers ahead of the Cardinals because they proved they were the better team. Obviously, that
did they, though, with A.J. Green?
That did come down to an A.J. Green interception. I agree with that. But they were also they had 2 goal lines. The Cardinals had 2 goal line stands that could have gone the other way and made that game look very, very different. So I will give the respect to the Packers that they were in that game the entire time. Really, I think it was a bad decision not to kick the field goal. I really do. Yeah, I think it was a bad decision there. You should have forced the Cardinals to have to go the length of the field, 80 yards, 85 yards, or 75 yards. I guess they would have started the 25 realistically and get a touchdown instead of trying to put the game away with a touchdown there. I think that would have been the right move.
I understand the thought process. I did not like the play call that they did.
Yeah, the play call was really bad. So I guess you could absolutely say that maybe that's an unfair ranking. But at the end of the day, they won the game. The cornerback came up with a big play there, and the pressure on Kyler got to him. All those things added up to a win for the Packers. And I do think the Packers are a legit football team. I think Cardinals still a very, very good team. Kyler Murray hurt is my big thing. I think, honestly, I really believe if Kyler Murray wouldn't have gotten hurt at all, and he was not on the injury report in any way, I still probably would be arguing that Cardinals should be ahead of the Packers. That might be the biggest difference for me. That really might be it. And then obviously Bucks lose to the Saints, have to give the respect to the Saints, and obviously Bucks have to fall down a little bit after having that tough loss. Even though I think we both agree the Bucks are going to be back in the top 3 very soon.
Yes, the Bucks should be. It's just one of those little hiccup weeks where it didn't really pick 6 late, took care of business. They were still playing a really good game. They came back and battled. Now I'll go back to the Cardinals though. The thing with this injury that scares me with Kyler is this one of those things where his pride could get in the way. And if he could play through a lingering injury, we saw Mahomes do it. You got a different product on the field. This team is reliant on Kyler Murray.
Well,
he has to be healthy, and I don't want him to be battling this on and off thing, and then you start to see the Cardinals' success. It's just something to look at.
I will go so far. I mean, he did it last year. I mean,
he did.
The reports came out. We know that Kyler Murray got hurt. I think it was the Dolphins game, actually, where he ended up getting hurt and played very different throughout the rest of the year.
He wasn't able to use his legs.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was actually his arm. I don't know exactly what the injury was. But when he is hurt, he was certainly altered last year, and that is something that is in my mind this year. For obviously a small guy, we knew injury concerns were going to be an issue coming into this season, coming into his career in general. And obviously, he has done everything he can on the field to protect himself. Goes down early, all those things. But you're never going to avoid getting hit in the NFL. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm very, very interested to see what Kyler looks like over the next 3 weeks. Are we going to get prime Kyler, the MVP of the football, if he stays playing the way he has been, or are we going to get a less accurate, a less quick,
I'm saying there's nothing wrong
effective
with him accepting, hey, this is a little banged up, this is a little tweaked, I might need to take a step back, I might need to let the higher ups know I got to get good before I can go out there and push it and then still not be as good. For the Cardinals to really amount to a true contender status, Kyler's going to need to be damn near 100%.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Let's move forward as we do every single week on this show and take a look forward to Week 9 in the NFL and what matchups do we think will have the biggest impact on this power rankings. And I'll be honest, like looking at it, we looked at it before the show and spent a good minute on it, and I kind of struggled. And the one that really popped to me, it's a division rival between a team that has been killing it versus a team that has been underperforming a good bit. And I think this was a game that I would have had circled at the beginning of the season that is not the same, and certainly not what I would have expected preseason, and that is Cardinals 49ers, right? I would not have expected the 49ers to be a 3-win football team at this point in the season, and I probably wouldn't have expected the Cardinals to be coming off their first loss and Week 8. So it'll be a good one. It'll be interesting, and I think this is a game that could go either way. I already talked about Kyler hurt. What's that going to look like? Is he going to be 100%? What is this 49ers defense really going to be capable of coming off a good win against the Bears? But the Bears are the Bears, and we don't really know how to feel about the Bears just yet because they just feel like one of those teams. They've sat at 25 on our rankings for a couple of weeks now.
They can catch you, but they can also beat themselves.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So we're still curious about how that's going to look. I don't know what this 49ers football team is. This Cardinals team does feel like, obviously getting their first loss against a really good Packers team. We'll see, can they bounce back here against the 49ers? And I'm excited to see that one.
Yeah, looking at the week as a whole, I'm glad you mentioned like a game that you would circle preseason and be like, that looks like a matchup I can't wait for. I'll give a little bit of a brief shout out to the Packers and Chiefs. This is the first time that Rodgers and Mahomes get to go against each other. And a lot of people say Mahomes is modeled after an Aaron Rodgers type of, off-balance thrower, sidearm mechanics. I would say if you were to equate somebody in the league to each other, they're the most like each other for sure. And it's just really not having that same effect that it would. So I'm going to take a different approach, and I'm going to look at the thing that affects our power rankings the most is to see the new identity of the Tennessee Titans against the Rams. Mm-hmm. Yes, I don't think the Titans can really show up and beat the Rams right now. The Rams, getting Von Miller, it's going to take him some time to get used to the system. But then again, when you're on the end and you just say go out there and get a good pass rush going, that translates regardless of system. I want to see the Titans be able to put up a good scheme, though, and see how they handle this Rams offense, see how the Titans are able to maybe move the ball through the passing game, because that's something that is always coming into question. Mm-hmm. And then I'll go ahead and flip it and say, I want to see what the Saints are able to do against the Falcons. I think if there's a time for the Saints to really get right on this identity, it's against the Falcons defense.
Yeah.
There's a way that I think they'll be able to grind out this win, and that's all that matters with Sean Payton. Same for the Titans, too, with Mike Vrabel, is grinding out these wins. You have a good enough of a head start in the Saints being 5-2 in the NFC, and then the Titans being 6-2 in the AFC, where you can get this thing right. All you got to do is just take care of some wins. They might be ugly. They might not be anything to write home about. But if you're able to get these wins until you can get healthy, I know I say healthy for Derrick Henry, the Saints aren't going to be getting a healthy Jameis Winston until next year. They're going to have to find a whole different rhyme or reason to it, but they can still do it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And we'll close it out right there, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe if you haven't already, and check back next week for another video.
Skull.
Peace.